You won't believe this story, but I swear every word of it is accurate. My neighbor, a woman who essentially patrols our street as if it were her own little kingdom, called 911 on me. And what did she tell the dispatcher? She said, in this voice just dripping with fake drama, that I had committed grand theft auto, that I'd stolen her priceless classic car right out of her garage. And her proof? The rock-solid evidence for this so-called heist? I had my own garage door open on a Saturday afternoon. She was dead serious, convinced I was running a chop shop, and it all blew up with 2 police cars, lights flashing, pulling up to my house while I was trying to organize my wrenches. You're going to want to stick around to hear how this completely insane accusation turned into a full-on showdown on my front lawn, and the sweet, sweet justice that followed. So, to really get how nuts this all was, you have to picture where I live. About a year before all this went down, my wife and I bought our dream home, or so we thought. It was in one of those picture-perfect, quiet suburban neighborhoods where all the lawns are the same shade of green and the mailboxes stand in a perfectly straight line. Yep, you guessed it, an HOA community. When we closed on the house, they didn't just give us the keys. They handed us a binder. This massive 3-ring binder, which must have weighed 10 pounds, was filled with rules for everything you could imagine. From the exact shade of beige for our trim to how tall your garden gnomes could be. Now, I'm a relaxed guy. I can follow rules. However, I have a hobby that requires a bit of space and can sometimes make some noise. I restore cars. It's not a business or anything, it's just my therapy. At the time, I had my project car in the garage, a 1994 Mazda Miata that needed some love. My garage was my happy place. I had my tool chests all lined up, every tool in its spot. The floor was clean, the lighting was good, and my little red Miata sat right in the middle, just waiting for me to tinker with it. It was my zone. But in an HOA, peace can be a pretty fragile thing. And our neighborhood had its own self-appointed guardian of that peace. Let's call her Carol. Carol lived right across the street. She was in her late 50s, had a haircut you could set your watch by, and these eyes that were always narrowed like she was constantly peering at you through her perfect white shutters. She was the unofficial HOA enforcer, judge, jury, and executioner of our suburban paradise. The first year we lived there, my run-ins with Carol were minor but definitely telling. A folded note on my doorstep telling me my trash cans were at the curb for 1 hour and 15 minutes too long. A comment shouted across the street about my grass getting dangerously close to the 4-inch height limit. She was a master of that passive-aggressive, sweet-as-sugar tone that still manages to make you feel like you've done something terribly wrong. Carol had one true love, and it wasn't her perfect roses or her flawlessly beige house. It was her car. A beautiful museum-quality 1966 Ford Mustang, cherry red with a perfect white vinyl top. That thing was her baby. Every Saturday morning, like clockwork, she and her husband, Bob, a quiet guy who always looked a little startled, would roll the car out. Bob would wash it while Carol supervised, pointing out specks of dust he'd missed. Then he'd wax it until you could see your reflection in it. After that, it was put back in the garage under a cover and not seen again until next Saturday. That car wasn't just a car. It was her status symbol. And, as I was about to find out, the source of some deep, deep paranoia. So the stage was set. My garage, my little sanctuary of grease and classic rock, was directly across from her pristine, climate-controlled car museum. And buried deep in that 10-pound HOA binder was one particularly annoying rule that would light the fuse on this whole mess. Rule 7, subsection B, paragraph 4. Garage doors are to remain in the closed position at all times, except for the immediate ingress and egress of a vehicle. It's a ridiculous rule, one that many of us have ignored. I had no idea that this simple rule about a door would lead to me being accused of a felony. It all kicked off on a gorgeous, sunny Saturday morning. The kind of day that makes you want to get something done. I had a new set of spark plugs for the Miata and couldn't wait to install them. It's an easy job, but I needed good light and some air, so I did what any normal person would do. I opened my garage door. Sunlight flooded in, and a nice breeze started blowing through. It was perfect. I put on some music, nothing too loud, laid out my tools, and got to it. About an hour in, I'm humming along, totally in the zone, when I get that weird feeling, that prickly feeling on the back of your neck like someone's watching you. I look up, and there she is. Carol, standing at the edge of her lawn, arms folded, looking like a statue of pure disapproval. I'm a friendly guy, so I give her a little wave and a smile. "Morning, Carol." "Nothing." She just kept glaring at my open garage door like it was a personal insult. After what felt like an eternity, she began to march, not walk, but march. Stiff-backed, right across the street, and planted herself at the end of my driveway with her hands on her hips. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over, figuring she was going to complain about the music. "You know the rules," she said, skipping the pleasantries. "Oh." "Hi, Carol," I said, trying to keep it light. "Beautiful day, right?" "Just getting some fresh air while I work on the car. I'll close it up when I'm done." "The rules," she repeated, her voice getting sharp. "Don't say close it when you're done. They say it's to be kept closed. We have rules for a reason." Her eyes darted into my garage, scanning my tools and the Miata's engine. "It maintains the aesthetic of the neighborhood, and it's for security." I couldn't help it. I let out a little laugh. "Carol, it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday. I'm standing right here. I think it's pretty secure." Her face got even tighter. "It's not just about your security. It sends a message. We don't want this neighborhood looking like some industrial park, with people running businesses out of their garages." The accusation just hung there. "Business? Carol, it's a hobby. This is my personal car. I'm just doing a little work on it." She let out this humph sound that was somehow both light and incredibly insulting. "That's what they all say. I'll be reporting this to the HOA board." And with that, she spun around and marched back to her house. I just stood there, completely blown away. The nerve of this woman was something else. I was annoyed, yeah, but mostly just baffled. I tried to shake it off. It was just Carol being Carol. I finished up with the spark plugs, cleaned up, and with a heavy sigh, closed the garage door. I really thought that was the end of it. Nope. I was so wrong. 3 days later, I get a crisp white envelope from the HOA. Inside is a formal warning. Violation of Rule 7, subsection B, paragraph 4. Failure to keep garage door in the closed position. It was a first offense, no fine, but it was the principle of the thing. She actually did it. She weaponized the HOA because I wanted some sunlight. By sending the letter, the HOA effectively acknowledged that she was right. This wasn't just about a garage door anymore. It was about a neighbor who had decided she was the boss of me and an HOA that was backing her up. I crumpled the letter in my hand and my frustration started to turn into something else. This was my home, my garage. I wasn't going to be bullied. But it didn't stop with the letter. Not even close. That was just the opening shot in what turned into a full-on suburban Cold War, fought with dirty looks and HOA bylaws. The following weekend, I had a much bigger job to do on the Miata, a complete suspension replacement. This wasn't a 1-hour job. This was an all-day thing. The car had to be on jack stands with its wheels off and parts were everywhere. There was no way I could do that with the garage door shut. I knew opening it would poke the dragon across the street, but come on. The idea of sweating it out in a dark, stuffy garage all day because of Carol's crazy ideas just wasn't happening. I own this house and I'm going to use it. So Saturday morning, I took a deep breath, hit the button, and the garage door rumbled open. It felt like a small act of rebellion. The sun poured in and I got started. Almost immediately, I thought it again, the stare. I glanced over and sure enough, the blinds in Carol's front window were parted just enough to see her face. She was just watching. It was creepy, like being watched by a sniper. For a couple of hours, nothing. Just that constant, unnerving feeling of being watched. Then, around lunchtime, her front door opens. This time, she brought back up. She was marching across her lawn with her husband, Bob, trailing behind her. He looked miserable. His shoulders were slumped like a man being led to his own doom. She didn't even pretend to be nice this time. "I see you didn't learn from the warning letter," she snapped, stopping at the end of my driveway. "The garage door is open. Again." "Carol, with all due respect," I said, trying to keep my voice as calm as I could. "I live here. This is my property. I'm working on my car in my garage, which I'm allowed to do." Her eyes narrowed. "Are you running a business out of this garage?" "The HOA has stringent rules against commercial operations." I actually laughed. The idea was so ridiculous. A business? Carol, look at the car. It's a 25-year-old Mazda. If this is a business, I'm going broke. This is my hobby. My laughing just made her furious. Her face got all blotchy and red. She took a step forward, pointing a shaky finger at my garage. I see cars coming and going. I hear power tools all the time. It looks like a chop shop in there. Chop shop. The words were just insane. My car hadn't moved from that spot in months. The only coming and going was me and my daily driver. A chop shop? I said, the laughter gone now, replaced by anger. You can't be serious. Carol, that is a dangerous and frankly slanderous thing to say. Bob, her husband, seemed to realize she'd gone too far. He put a hand on her arm. Now, honey, let's not— Stay out of this, Robert, she shrieked, pulling her arm away. I know what I see. All those parts, she waved her hand wildly. Where do they come from? Are they stolen? You're bringing down the property values of this entire neighborhood with your activities. Then she said the line that actually sent a chill down my spine. She glanced over at her own garage, the holy temple of her Mustang, then looked back at me, her eyes glinting. You know, people's cars go missing all the time. Nice cars, valuable cars. It would be a terrible, terrible shame if someone in this very neighborhood were responsible. The threat was obvious. She was basically accusing me to my face of being a car thief. That was it. I was done being nice. Carol, I said, my voice low and hard, that is a serious, baseless accusation. You need to leave my property. Right now. Go back to your house and stop harassing me, she scoffed. We'll just see about that, she muttered before grabbing Bob and practically dragging him back across the street. As I watched them go, I was just cold with anger. This wasn't a dumb neighbor fight anymore. This was something darker. Her imagination was running wild, and she was casting me as the neighborhood villain. That night, I went online and ordered a security camera. I installed it the next day, right under the eave of my garage, giving it a perfect view of my driveway and the street. I even put a little sign in my window, "Smile, you're on camera." I wasn't trying to be a jerk. I was trying to create a witness. I thought that seeing the camera would deter her. Instead, it fed her paranoia, proving in her mind that I must have something to hide. I had just set the stage for her craziest performance yet, and that's when everything went completely off the rails. The security camera would be the thing that put an end to this. Instead, it was like she took it as a personal challenge. The following Saturday was the day. I was finally going to finish the suspension job on the Miata. My buddy Dave, who actually knows what he's doing, came over to help. He got there around 9 a.m. and we got right to work. Garage door wide open, car on jack stands, radio on, just two friends working on a vehicle. We were so focused we didn't notice her at first. But then we heard it, a sound that cut right through the music, the sound of pure hysteria. I looked up and saw Carol, standing in her driveway, phone glued to her ear. She wasn't just talking. She was putting on a complete performance. She was sobbing, clutching her chest, the whole 9 yards, and she was loud. Loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear every delusional word. Yes. 911! I need the police. I want to report a grand theft auto, she screamed into the phone. Dave and I just froze, wrenches in our hands, staring at each other in total disbelief. This was not happening. Then she pointed a shaky, dramatic finger right at me. It's my neighbor. He stole it. My classic car is gone. He runs a chop shop, I told you. He must have taken it last night. He's probably got it in his garage right now, taking it apart. My brain couldn't process the level of crazy I was hearing. I glanced over at her house. Her garage door was shut, completely closed. I finally found my voice and yelled, Carol, what are you talking about? Your garage door is closed. How do you even know your car is gone? Her head snapped around, her eyes blazing with this terrifying, self-righteous anger. I don't have to open it to know, she shrieked back, a response that literally makes no sense. You've been casing my house for weeks. I saw you. You and your accomplice, she added, pointing at Dave, who just threw his hands up like, Are you kidding me? Neighbors started peeking out their windows and cracking open their doors. We had a packed audience for Carol's one-woman show. I'm not kidding. Less than 10 minutes later, I heard sirens. 2 police cruisers, lights flashing, pulled up right in front of my house. It was totally surreal. 1 minute, I'm working on my car. The next, my house looks like a crime scene. 2 officers got out. One was older, looked like he'd seen it all. The other was younger and looked more by the book. Carol ran to them, lying on the drama. "Officers!" "Thank God you're here," she wailed, grabbing the older officer's arm. "He stole my car! My 1966 Ford Mustang. It was right there in my garage, and he took it." She spun and pointed right at me. "That's him! The thief!" The older officer gently removed her hand from his arm and walked toward me. I just stood calmly in my own driveway, hands slightly up in a "no threat here" gesture. "Sir," the officer said, his voice firm but calm, "we've received a report of a stolen vehicle. The caller is alleging that you're involved." "Officer," I said, my heart pounding but my voice steady, "I promise you I have no idea what she's talking about. My name is Mark. This is my house, and that woman has been harassing me for weeks because she has this fantasy that I'm running a chop shop." "He's lying," Carol shrieked. "Search his garage. It's in there, or what's left of it." The older officer, let's call him Officer Miller, raised his hand to quiet her. "Ma'am, please. Let me handle this." He turned back to me. "So you do not know her vehicle?" "None," I said. "And just for the record, she hasn't even looked in her own garage to see if the car is actually gone." The younger officer spoke up. "Sir, would you mind if we take a look at your garage?" "Normally I might," I said, "but please be my guest. I have nothing to hide. You'll find my 1994 Mazda Miata, a bunch of tools, and my friend Dave. You won't find a 1966 Ford Mustang." The two officers walked into the garage. Dave was standing there, covered in grease, looking totally stunned. They did a slow walk-through, looked at the Miata, glanced at the new parts, and even looked behind my tool chests. There was no other car in there. Officer Miller walked back out. "Sir, you're right. There's no Mustang in here." Carol was losing it. "He must have already sold the parts. Look at all those tools. He's a professional. He did it overnight and cleaned up." This was it. This was my moment. "Officers," I said, feeling a new wave of confidence. "Like I said, she's been harassing me for weeks. It got so bad I installed a security camera." I pointed up to the little dome under the roof. "It records my driveway 24/7 with audio. I'd be happy to show you the footage from the entire night. You'll see that my garage door stayed shut until 9 a.m. this morning, and nothing, least of all a classic Mustang, went in or out. That was the turning point. You could sense the entire situation shifting. The cops looked from me to the camera and then to Carol, who was suddenly stammering. Officer Miller turned to face her. All the patience was gone from his voice. "Ma'am, have you actually opened your garage door to confirm your car is missing?" She sputtered, looking around for an escape. I don't need to. I know he took it." "Ma'am," Officer Miller said, his voice dropping low and serious, "we can't proceed with a grand theft auto report if you haven't even verified a theft occurred. We have allocated city resources to come here based on your claim. Now please, open your garage door and check for your vehicle." The whole street was dead silent. Every neighbor was now entirely outside, watching. Carol, looking trapped and furious, finally realized she had no choice. She stomped over to her garage keypad, shoving Bob out of the way. She punched in the code. There was a low rumble. And then slowly, majestically, her garage door began to rise. And there it was, her perfect prized 1966 cherry red Ford Mustang. It sat there, gleaming under the garage light, exactly where she left it. Maybe a little dusty, but completely, undeniably there. A total beautiful silence fell over the street. It was the most satisfying silence of my life. Section 5. The aftermath and the sweet sound of silence. The fallout was instant and amazing. Officer Miller just let out a long, slow sigh. The sigh of a man who has seen it all and is just so tired. He turned his head and pinned Carol with a look of pure exhaustion. "Ma'am," he said, his voice flat, "is this your vehicle?" Carol was speechless. Her mouth was opening and closing, but nothing was coming out. She just stared at her perfectly safe car like she was seeing a ghost. Officer Miller's voice turned stern. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a serious offense. It's a misdemeanor in most places, and you can face fines and even jail time. You knowingly provided us with false information, accused your neighbor of a felony, and wasted city resources. We could charge you right now. Do you understand that?" Suddenly, she found her voice backtracking like crazy. But, I thought, he's always in his garage. All the noise. I was just so worried. I just assumed, no, ma'am, he cut her off. You didn't assume, you accused. There's a big difference. He then gave her a very thorough, very public, and very embarrassing lecture about when to call 911. He let her off with a severe warning, making it clear that if they ever got another bogus call from her about me or anyone else, she would be charged. The officers came over and apologized to me for the whole thing. I thanked them for being so professional. As they drove away, the quiet that settled on the street was almost funny. The neighbors all slowly went back inside, shaking their heads in dismay. Carol and a humiliated-looking Bob disappeared into their house, and the garage door of judgment rumbled shut. The weeks after were pure bliss. Carol became a ghost. We didn't see her for months. No patrols, no notes, no glares. Her reign of terror was over, not with a bang, but with the quiet, humiliating sound of her own garage door opening. The following Monday, I wrote a very long email to the HOA. I detailed the weeks of harassment, the false accusations, and the 911 call. Most importantly, I attached a link to the cloud storage with the full, unedited security footage. 2 days later, the president of the HOA called me himself. He was incredibly apologetic. He told me the warning letter was being removed from my record and that the board had officially sanctioned Carol for harassment. It turns out that justice can sometimes be delivered via a well-written email. Back in the garage, right after the cops left, Dave and I just stood there in silence for a minute. Then we both just started laughing. That deep, can't believe that just happened kind of laugh. We got back to work on the Miata, but every few minutes one of us would shake our head and start laughing all over again. So that's the story of how opening my garage door led to a police standoff on my lawn. The level of entitlement and paranoia is still something I can't wrap my head around. It just goes to show you can have the perfect house, but you can't choose your neighbors. But in the end, a cheap "smile you're on camera" sign and a simple security camera proved to be the solution. The truth is a powerful thing. What's the craziest thing a neighbor has ever accused you of? Please let me know in the comments, as I'd love to know I'm not alone after this. And if you enjoyed this story of a Karen getting what she deserved, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share this with anyone who's ever had to deal with a nightmare neighbor or a power-tripping HOA. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.